Welcome back to the third part of this mini-series in which we're going to print a PDF using Amazon's CreateSpace service. We've dealt with the interior, we've dealt with the setup, and now it's time to deal with the book cover, of course. And in my case here, this is a copy of a Word document I've printed previously using Amazon's CreateSpace service. And in this case, this is a 6:9 version, and I've used the matte finish. And that's great. I've used that on another product as well that's currently still in the post, hasn't quite arrived yet, but it's got the same size. And I think I'm going to just try out the glossy version as well. So these are the two choices, either matte or glossy. I suppose I don't really have a glossy example here unless this counts, and this used to have a glossy kind of finish, and you can see if I move these two around, you can see the differences. This one doesn't catch the light as much as this one. I mean, this is like an old 30-year-old guide, so the lamination is kind of worn off, but that's what that means. A glossy cover, it has a lamination on it, a lamination layer, and a matte cover does not have that. Actually, look at that. I've got another book here, one of my wife's books. So this is another commercial paperback in, I believe, this is, always handy to have all these example sizes here. So this book here by Bill Walsh is in the middle. So this is 6:9, this is 8:5. So that's the only difference. And this has a glossy finish. So you can see the difference here. This is a fairly new book, and you can see how a glossy book does catch the light, and a matte version does not do that. So this is matte, this is glossy. So choose whichever version you want. They both feel extremely nice, and I must say I've never had the glossy finish from Amazon CreateSpace, so I'm going to select the glossy here because I've got two matte versions already. It would be nice to see what's going on here. So that's just the type of finish they're going to put on that. Now we've got two options here. You can either build your cover online, and they give you a little tool, a little bit like what we've seen in the previous video with the Flash thing that lets you build a cover inside a web browser. But I really want my cover to look like the thing that I've already got in the PDF. So this is going to be the back cover, which has an ISBN printed on it, so I must make sure I get rid of that. And then I've got the front of that as well. Let me just quickly scroll there. This is the front, and I'm going to make my own cover in Photoshop, and that's what I'm going to show in this video here. But feel free to use the build cover online editor. I've done that before, and it is, it gives you some options. But if you want to upload your print ready cover, then you're of course responsible for making all these difficult adjustments there. And this is what this is all about. It's a bit of a lesson in Photoshop if you have access to Photoshop. Now, here's the thing. You get a couple of links here. You get the submission requirements here, and they sound extremely difficult, really. And in previous versions of CreateSpace, you had to get a calculator and work all these things out yourself. So you basically have the front cover, and you have the spine, and you have the back cover, and you also have the bleed, which is kind of the area around it that gets cut off so that all kinds of color things go all out to all edges. So if you click that link, then they give you the exact numeric values of what you'd need to do, but they also, at least last time, I hope they still have that, they also give you a little online tool that will do all these calculations for you. So that's great. So you don't have to go ahead and calculate all this. So they say, example, if you have a 6:9 inch cover with 60 black and white pages, then you must say a page is this thick when it's cream, and this thick when it's white paper, and so forth. So you need to do all that. But the good thing is you can just click this link, so you don't have to hack all this in your calculator and get a headache. You can just click this link, download cover templates, and that will give you this little template builder here. So in my case, my interior is going to be black and white with bleed, I guess. Is that correct? Yeah, I guess so. The trim size is going to be 6:9. There we go. And the number of pages, I believe we've just seen it was 508. Oh yes, and the paper color was cream. And if you do that and click build template, then it will either create both these things, a PNG and a PDF template for you. And both these things can be opened in Photoshop, and then we can just put our images and all these things in there. And that's just a very nice way of handling that. Obviously, give them the correct value, so give them the correct page count, and then just click this file and that'll download this book cover 6x9 cream 510. That's cool. So I'm going to open that, and that'll give me this. So this was the previous project I've worked on that had 470 pages, and this one's got 510. And I'm just going to use this PNG file here, and that'll look a bit like this. So all the red areas are the stuff that gets trimmed off, and these little dotted lines here are the lines until which you need to kind of provide, at least you need to provide content until that. If you have bleed, then it needs to be a little bit further. And this is the barcode area. We can put this in a different place. If you don't like it at this place, you can just create a white space in Photoshop here, 2 inches by 1.2 inches, and then move that around. So that's no problem. But this is also just a quick view thing here, so this is no good to us unless we open it actually in Photoshop. So let me do that. I'm using Photoshop CC here. There we go. That's our paperback, and let's see what we can do with this. So turn off all guidelines for final art. That's cool. We're just going to stack our art on top of that. So let me first grab the artwork because it's currently contained in the PDF. All I want to do is grab a screenshot of this. So I'll do that on my Mac. I'll do that with Shift Command and 4, which will give me this crosshair cursor. And I'm just going to make sure I'm going to grab this as a screenshot here from here to there. I can also hold the space bar down to move this whole rectangle down once I've dragged it out, but I think I was pretty good there the first time. There we go. And that's saved that as a screenshot. Now I'm going to go to the very back and take another screenshot of that. So again, it's Shift Command 4 on the Mac, or on Windows you can use the so-called snipping tool. I always forget what the shortcut to that is, so best do a search in Windows for that. It's called the snipping tool. There we go. That's taken 2 screenshots here, and if I'm gonna go and grab them, this is the actual PDF and these are the 2 screenshots. I'm gonna go and open them also in Photoshop. There, that's what it looks like. And in order to put that onto my template here, I can right click on this layer, so this is just a single layer, and perhaps I'm going to call it something as well. Double click where it says layer 0 and call it something. In my case I'm going to call it the front cover, and then right click on here and select duplicate layer. And what that'll do is it'll duplicate this layer and let you put it into a different document. So on here you can choose the document. In my case that's 6x9 cream 510, and if I do that, nothing seems to have happened. But if we go back into that main document, I have it here. So this is now 300 dpi, the template that they've sent me, and this is probably just 72, which is whatever I saw on the screen. It'll be fine. It'll be blurry because it's an old thing anyway, so that's fine. I don't need this anymore, so I can close this down. Command W will do that for me. And now onto the back cover. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to double click into that and call it black cover. Now it's the back cover, isn't it? There we go. And right click again onto that layer, select duplicate layer and select that main document, hit OK, and then close this file down. No need to save it. Now we have the front and the back cover, and we can put those with the correct tool selected. That's this one here, that's the move tool, also accessible from the shortcut V. You can then move these things down. So in my case, this is going to be, this needs to fill out all the red areas. Now if I were to do that, let me just show you what happens there. I can grab one of these corners and then I can stretch the image to where it needs to be. If I want to make sure it retains its aspect ratio so that there's no skewing happening, I can hold down the Shift key and that'll let me resize the document, but it won't let me change the aspect ratio. So that's a very important thing sometimes. In my case, I think it's not that critical, so I can go and stretch it out a little bit. But here's my issue. If I were to stretch this all the way to, well, let's say to the very end of the document, here and there, then I can see that some of my writing is going to be cut off, and I don't really want to make that happen. I need to provide some kind of bleed, but in this case I would rather adjust this to the beginning of the red here, and I will have to make sure that I provide my own bleed around it. If you have a single color image, then that's fairly easy to do because you can just put a single color on it. Once you're done with adjusting this, you just hit return, and then that'll make all these markers go away here. There we go, that's our front cover. But we need to make sure we fill the red bleed out here. So we'll do that in a moment. Let's deal with the back cover and do the same thing here with the back cover. Position it to about here, and then we're going to go and stretch this out to about here. Remember, the Shift key is the one you can hold down if you don't want any stretching to happen there. And then hit return for this to kind of lock in. Now, perhaps we'll start with the back cover. It's fairly easy to provide a bleed to the left and the right of it here, because I can literally just stretch the document out to about here, to this dotted line. So this is where the spine begins. We're going to deal with that spine in a moment. But for now, let's just stretch this out to about here, and the left part of the back cover to about here. I can even stretch it further to about here. I think I might do that. There we go. And I can do that here because I'm not going to lose any printing. In this case, it's kind of funky to have the price on there. The ISBN, however, needs to go and print it in the USA. I think I'm just going to stretch this all the way out to the bottom. So that means I'm going to lose part of this, but I'm going to have to obscure the ISBN because it just mustn't be on there. So let's do that, and we'll deal with that in a moment. At the top here, the issue is that I cannot, it looks like, stretch this out without getting rid of some of my writing here. So that's okay. I'm just going to click return and lock this in, and I'm going to utilize a little trick here. I'm going to copy the back cover using holding the Alt key down and then just dragging down, and I'm going to have a second back cover here. You can alternatively just right click on something and just hit duplicate layer again, and then just make sure you duplicate it into the same document, and you can even give it a different name here. So the second back cover, which is now underneath this, so we can't really see this, I want to move up a little bit to about here. So I want to make sure it is, well, let's just click the top cover and lower the opacity a little bit so that I can see what's going down underneath it. That doesn't quite have the effect that I was looking for. Or we can just switch it off, that's also fine. Let's switch the top layer off and just work with the bottom layer. And my intention is to just have this top space here stretch out a little bit so that it obscures that bleed at the top. And the easiest way to do that is to just stretch the whole thing out, I guess. Stretch it to the top, then move it down so that basically we don't want to see the writing here. We're just interested in the top part, and it'll become clear why I'm doing this in a moment, because if I select that top cover again and make that available, and of course put the opacity back to 100%, then I can see that all I get is a tiny line here now, but other than that I've got the same color all the way around it, and that's important for me right now. To get rid of that line, we're going to smooth that in a moment, so we're going to make sure that that's happening. And this thing, well, I'm just going to have to live with that. That's fine. I'm not that bothered, but I do want some kind of cover here. Let's finish off the back cover by obscuring the ISBN and the price here, so that we just cut all that off, and in fact probably this last bottom bit here as well. It's fairly easy to do by adding on the very bottom here, it comes up with a little context menu that says solid color. And if we do that, then it will select a new layer, which of course red isn't exactly what we wanted, but we're just going to accept that anyway, because we're going to position that to underneath the, well, actually the first cover or the second cover. Yeah, let's put it, whoops, underneath the first cover here. So now all of a sudden this is bathed in just that one color. So we're going to move that layer as soon as we've adjusted it. If you double click that, it'll still give you that color picker. And I can't really select a pure white because that is most likely a different color than what we have in this PDF here. So I'm going to use my little color picker that just comes up automatically, and I'm going to sample a color from the very bottom down here. And if I do that, it's kind of an off-white thing here, I guess, or it could be in that case. And by doing that, I can now select either an eraser tool to erase these parts of that document here, of that layer, or I can just create a layer mask on my top layer here and print on that, to type something on that. So I may do that. Layer mask is happening with this little icon here, and it'll just come up with that thing. So now, just in case you're not familiar with Photoshop that much, you can select the layer or the layer mask. So it has a little rectangle on top of that, so around that. So make sure that is selected, and then choose a brush like this one with a bit of a kind of a bit bigger. You can use the angular brackets, and also we don't need something like this. We want something like a soft mechanical brush in something like this size. Yeah, probably a little bit bigger. You can of course change the size with these the square angle brackets, and once you've done that, once you're painting on a mask, it should have the black and white color selected. You can literally just go and erase this. And the beautiful thing about doing it this way is that whatever's underneath our layer will now shine through. So whatever color is on that layer will now shine through. So that gets rid of the price and the ISBN, so that's that taken care of. The top here is now gone, so what we need to do is, while we're here, in fact, to get rid of that line, we can paint something soft on the top layer. Let me just move that layer over to here, and now we can see what I've done on the mask here. So we need to make sure we're going to erase part of this image. That's happening with the eraser tool, by the way, which is this one. So let's draw directly on that layer and get rid of anything that's on the bottom. There we go. Now we go back to the layer mask of the top layer, and by zooming in we can see that there's this tiny little line here, and again with the soft brush, perhaps with a slightly lower opacity, I can now go and paint over this and then basically just brush that harsh line out so that we don't see it anymore, or that we don't see it that much. There, I guess it'll have to do. Yeah, it's fine. You can probably spend a lot more time on this, but you know, it's one of those things. The video is running long as it is already, so I just want to make sure we talk about the front cover and of course the spine. In fact, perhaps I'm going to split this off into its own part. So that was the back side of the cover. Now let's deal with the front side in the next video. So we're just going to have, you know, a little bit more time there. Anyway, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next part. If you like this series, then please share it with friends, family, and total strangers, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I will see you in the next part. Take care.